Hello ladies and gentlemen, this video will be about the upcoming two eclipses. Why are we looking at the two eclipses together? This is because they belong to each other. We are starting with the lunar eclipse on the 25th of March this year, and the eclipse corridor of this particular eclipses will be closing with the solar eclipse on 8th of April. Now, as you know, this year we have 5 eclipses in total, which is quite a lot. The minimum number of eclipses per year are 2 and the maximum is 7. So we have 5 eclipses. And this is quite a lot, and this shows that the year is extraordinary, intense, and not very easy. Now I will tell you a bit about the perspective and the way the ancients in ancient Babylon would analyze the eclipses. And then of course we look at the placement in the chart, how these eclipses are positioned and how they would influence the 12 ascendants. Of course, when I say that I will look at the 12 ascendants, I have to tell you that this is quite general, because the eclipses are not influencing our horoscopes only when they are placed on our ascendant or descendant, but they are also very much bringing change into our lives if they will be on midheaven or conjoined with moon or sun or with ascendant ruler, or they can be very much influencing our horoscope if they're in a key position in the horoscope. So I would give you this information on how the ancients would analyze the eclipses, how the chart of eclipses look like, what this chart will possibly bring to us and to the world, and then quite on a general basis we look at the 12 ascendants. Now the ancients would consider, as I previously told you, the eclipses as events with very dramatic character, very dramatic. And this is, if we try to perceive this now, their point of view, the eclipses are portals for change. The 2 lunar nodes which bring the eclipses are actually portals for change. And as you can imagine, there cannot be change if we do not abandon the old, or if we do not bring closure to something old. And we people are very resistant to change. That's why every change we consider as something dramatic, and this was not really different in the ancient times. The ancients would search for ominous phenomena in the eclipse, which would say deviation from the normal. I would tell you that Sargon the Great, he was an amazing king, the first one who pronounced himself to be equal to God. So Sargon the Great, king of Babylon, of Akkad, he would have his ziggurat, which was like a tower temple, only with the main purpose of analyzing eclipses. And he would have his team, and they would really stay and watch the eclipses. I usually advise people not to watch the eclipses, because my personal experience is that they are not really favorable, not really bringing any good to us if we watch them. But with the purpose of analyzing and seeing the color of the moon, seeing from which side the moon will be darkened, for example, or to see if there is any wind, of course it is good to somehow analyze and watch the eclipses. So this is very important. When I tell you a little bit more about these 2 eclipses, in the end I will tell you one interesting remedy which the ancients applied. Now, the first eclipse on the 25th of March is taking place on the 14th lunar day of the Babylonian month of Adar. The 14th lunar day is associated with, actually it covers the 13th and the 14th lunar days, with the two cities of the ancient world, which have their mirroring cities today. So we're talking about ancient Akkad and ancient Elam. Akkad was the center of the world back then. So we can really think that the Babylonian month Adar, 14th and 13th, will be associated with Europe or the Western world or America. And the 13th lunar day is associated with Elam, which is contemporary Iran. So I would not exclude the possibility this eclipse somehow to activate some not very happy events in Iran, and certainly that will worsen the situation of the economy and in general the peace in the contemporary Europe and also America. And this is according to the ancients. When the eclipse is taking place in this particular part of the day, which is considered day watch, they would call it watch. So they would divide the day and the night into day and night watches. Every watch, wherever the eclipse falls, in which watch the eclipse falls, will also give certain meaning. So this particular watch, when the first eclipse will take place, will mean that the eclipse will be influencing the world for 10 months and 20 days. So like you see, eclipses take place, and around the timing of the eclipse, of course, we do not always feel very well, but their influence is long. It is not happening only today. And then they happen one after another, and these influences pile up. So it's very hard to give very specific predictions about, as a result of certain eclipses, because we are still influenced by the previous eclipses, and we had them in the end of the 2023. This is important point to make. That's why when we say when you have too many eclipses in one year, the year is not easy, because this is big concentration of difficult energy. Also, this particular placement of the eclipse would mean disease, plague, the ancients say. Now I'm telling you what they say, how they would analyze eclipses. This is one of the things, and later I tell you how the chart of the eclipse looks like, and I will also show the chart. Also, I told you 14th lunar day, and the month is Adar, and the month of Adar is pointing toward the city of Subartu, which corresponds to the contemporary Russia, which may also be influenced not in a very easy way. The direction of the shadow we can only guess from some online data. It is again pointing towards the city of Akkad, which is contemporary Western world. Then I tell you two words about the second eclipse, because before we look at the charts. The solar eclipse on the 8th of April is happening also in the same month of Adar, which is pointing towards Russia, bad influence on Russia, and it is going to continue for 3 months and 10 days, the influence of the eclipse. So you see one after another. The first one is almost 11 months of influence, the second one is 3 months, so you see how long they influence us. So, and then the rest is quite the same. Now, I will also show you now the chart of the first eclipse, and then we'll be reasoning together. Now, the eclipse of 25th of March is taking place on the axis of Libra and Pisces, and as you can see, the moon is in the 12 degrees of Virgo, and the sun is in the 12 degrees of Pisces. And yes, these are degrees, especially Piscean degrees, of course, very, very spiritual. And you see that visible Mercury is also in Pisces, in again very spiritual degrees. And you have Mercury visible, you have the Sun conjoined all in Pisces, and on the other side you see conjunction between Mars, invisible Saturn, and Venus. And in the meantime also Jupiter is in Aries. Now you see this particular concentration, of the 3 planets in Aquarius. Venus is in the vicinity of the sacred degrees, very spiritual, abundance of Venus energy, because the sacred degrees of Aquarius are associated with the water, which the water man, the Aquarius man, is pouring. And you have Venus there, so this is something good. This is abundance of love, of blessing if you want, of information, of memory. But Saturn is invisible in Aquarius, conjoined with Mars, and this is not an easy aspect. And when the eclipse points are not aspected by benevolent planets, basically we really see the eclipse with its full strength, full powers. What is about the axis of Pisces and Virgo? Now, the energy of Pisces, of course, is the energy which is ruling the natural 12th house of the zodiac, which is energy of the difficult karma, the sick people, the poor, the people who are running out of their countries, and these are the refugees. And as you see, this particular eclipse, the way it's happening can mean some health matters, and we have activation of the axis of Pisces. And Virgo energy, especially the degree where the moon is, are degrees where you have the goddess Isis holding a baby, and it is believed that this could be a Horus. So the ancients would say that these degrees are associated with people who are very high, have very high position in society. This would be judges, this would be lawyers, this would be rulers. So these degrees are being affected by the eclipse. This would say that such people will be changed, or they will somehow suffer, or there will be something happening to them. Justice might be reached. I'm not sure, but this is eclipse which brings changes. It is always the case with eclipses. Remember, these are portals for change. So this is very important. And like I'm telling you, we don't really see benevolent planet making any aspect to the eclipse points, except that the two benevolent planets, Jupiter and Venus, are around the eclipse, and this looks quite ominous to me, and I'm sure that this configuration is a yoga, has certain meaning, and it is indeed emphasizing on this particular axis. And this will be quite serious, very interesting, and it will have its length in time. Now let's see the second eclipse, which is even more interesting. So look how interesting. Now this is where the conjunction is taking place. You see, this is the eclipse, the solar eclipse, 8th of April, conjunction between moon and the sun in the 25th degrees of Pisces. Venus, exalted in Pisces, is also participating in the eclipse. As you know, this is good, because I will remind to you what the ancients said. It is that when a benevolent planet is participating in the eclipse, the evil will be reversed. I'm saying this because there are many fears of people. I know how many clients asked me, and I see it. Many people are afraid from this particular eclipse. It might not be that evil as we think. In addition, interestingly, this particular eclipse is happening in degrees which are very, very spiritual in Pisces. Degrees where we have the constellation of Andromeda. These are the hands of Andromeda. So the myth of Andromeda is very interesting. It is coming from the Greek mythology. She was daughter of Cepheus. He was king. And she said to the sea nymphs that she is more beautiful than them. They felt very, very offended. They complained to Poseidon, and he wanted to destroy the whole land of the father of Andromeda. But then I think Athena was the one who sent, and then she was chained. Her hands were chained. So Athena plus Venus, and see, Venus is here. She actually sent the warrior Perseus, and he unchained Andromeda, and they got married and had many children. So see that the solar eclipse is taking place in the hands of Andromeda, the hands which are chained. And then Venus is sending Perseus to unchain her, and he is actually managing to unchain her. This is important because, if we think logically, we have the planets, and above the planets we have the placement. They have the celestial spheres, and above we have the placement of the fixed stars and the constellation, the zodiac constellation. So they have very high hierarchy. And actually, this particular constellation has its place, its importance on the sky. So Pisces is a sign where the constellation of Andromeda has projection into. And Pisces is the sign of what we just said, refugees, natural disasters, diseases, the bad karma, and obviously the eclipses will bring change into that. Would it be that severe? Probably not, because Venus is participating, and also because, yes, the hands of Andromeda were chained, but in the end they were unchained by Perseus, and the eclipse is taking place right there. So this doesn't seem to be that dramatic to me. Of course, we do not have only 2 eclipses. Let me remind to you, all 5 eclipses of year 2024 are taking place on this particular axis. And this is quite important because all the time the axis of the same things of the natural house of the zodiac will be afflicted seriously, so that there are changes taking place. So also one interesting quotation translated from cuneiforms about the eclipses. It comes from Akkadian. So they say, the oracles, when Sin, which is the moon god, makes a decision, so the great gods of heaven and earth decide the doings of mankind, and they cause the eclipse, the flood, the illness, the death. They send the great Gallo demons and Sebetu are the Pleiades, the 7 demons of Mars, Nergal. So they send the 7 demons, Sebetu, who always block the way in front of the Sin. Sin is the moon god. So you can see the eclipses are cause of very divine power, which is supposed to influence the destinies of people on earth. I believe this is so. Now, what I will tell you before we look at the 12 ascendants, very interesting remedy. Because the ancients believed, of course, and I certainly believe in this esoteric part of the ancient astrology. So they believe that every planet, every star, of course, has spiritual counterpart, divinity, which is ruling the planet or the star, and this everything which is indeed taking place is a result of these divine influences on earth. So of course, when there would be such, according to them, dramatic event as eclipse or other ominous phenomena, they would directly address these divinities in order to change the influence of this particular celestial phenomena, or to destroy the evil. So there is one interesting incantation which comes from the Suluh ceremony, and such ceremonies were made, of course, by the priests. They would have different hierarchies of priests. You have Baru, diviner, Kalu, priest, and you have Ashipu, which is the what we call now exorcist, but not exactly, because he would also be astrologer. He would have more knowledge. So what is the translation is following. So they do incantation. They say, your hands are washed, your hands are washed, your hands are washed, you are holy, your hands are washed, you are pure, your hands are washed, you are resplendent, your hands are washed, you are clean. He whose hands are washed is shining, he whose hands are washed is pure, he whose hands are washed is resplendent, he whose hands are washed is shining. May this man, the son of his God, become holy like the heavens. May he become pure like the earth. May he shine like the holy heart of heaven. May the evil tongue stand aside. So this is a ceremony, and oftentimes they would address the Shamash, the sun god, to reverse the evil, because of course this is the same thing. They would believe that these eclipses are caused by divine power. They have divine origin. So this is just to give you an idea. And now let's look at the 12 ascendants and how the eclipses may influence us. But just let me tell you again, this is not like we analyze the transits or important transits of planets entering into certain zodiac sign. This is a little bit more complex, that's therefore it will be a little bit more general. But of course, if you like to hear how the eclipses will influence your particular horoscope, you may contact me. There is specific discounted reading for this month and for the eclipses on my website, which is listed under this video. Anyway, we still can look at the 12 ascendants so that you have idea which axis in your horoscope will be going through certain transformation, because once again the eclipses are portals for change. And I also want to remind you, approximately 15 days before the beginning of the corridor, which in this case is 25th of March, and then approximately 15 days after the second date, which is 8th of April, we need to be a little bit more careful. Depends, of course, where the eclipse falls in your horoscope, but still we have to be a little bit more careful, because we were still under the very powerful influence of the eclipse in our horoscopes. Excuse my voice once again. I hope you hear me well. Now we are starting with people who have sidereal ascendant Aries or moon in Aries, or if you're following the modern tropical astrology, this will be Taurus. Now for you, these eclipses are taking place on the axis of 12th and 6th houses in your horoscope. This is axis which is related to many things actually, but of course it is related to health, to the difficult karma, to your spirituality, to your routine, to activation of some enemies. So you need, of course, as a result, to be more responsible for your health, to stay away from conflicts, from disputes, risky situations, to be a little bit more diplomatic with people. But in general, it's good to be more responsible for your health. And of course, surgeries, medical interventions is better to do after 2 weeks after the second eclipse is taking place. Indeed, it is better to wait a little bit. So this is quite general, but will give information to you where particularly the eclipse is taking place in your horoscope. Now we look at people who have sidereal ascendant Taurus or moon in Taurus, or for the modern tropical astrology, this will be Gemini. For you, the eclipses are taking place on axis of 11th and 5th houses, which is involving gains, communication with children, friendships, plans, and yes, finances, and also your creative knowledge. There you may experience some changes. You may need to be a little bit more attentive with children. You may experience changes with friendships, friends in general. You may need also to be a little bit more diplomatic with friends. It's not also appropriate timing for negotiations related to finances, or when you make financial decisions, you may need to be more intuitive, if you want, a little bit more careful, and make financial decisions waiting a little bit, like 2 weeks after the eclipse the second eclipse is over, because there will be changes and you will see how these changes are playing out for you, for your horoscope, but a little bit later after the eclipse. So this is the main axis which will be influenced for you by the eclipse. People who have sidereal ascendant Gemini or moon in Gemini, or if you're following the modern tropical astrology, this will be Cancer. Now for you, the eclipse is taking place, the two eclipses on the axis of 10th and 4th houses, directly related to career, finances, parents, finances, your home, your property, parents. So of course, this immediately is a portal which is about change related to your career, occupation, main goals, communication with parents, also home, property, eventual relocation. So this is what is influenced by the eclipses, and this is where you may experience some changes. Therefore, around the timing of the eclipse and 2 weeks after, until 2 weeks after, be more diplomatic at work. I wouldn't hurry to make decisions related to property, to relocation. Wait a little bit, because after the eclipse you have more clarity. But be specifically diplomatic in your career place. So this is quite important. Now, and also of course, when it comes to your parents, make sure that they are healthy, that you have good, kind communication with them. Now we look at people who have sidereal ascendant Cancer or moon in Cancer, or if you're following the modern tropical astrology, this would be Leo. For you, this is axis of 9th, 3rd houses. This is where the eclipses take place for you. And you are certainly quite sensitive towards eclipses, because luminary is ruling your ascendant, the moon. So you are a sensitive person, and for you this portal is interesting, this 3rd and 9th houses axis. It may mean that you may truly have opening to, spiritual experiences, some interesting things happening to your intuition even. Maybe you'll be receiving knowledge, this eclipse would make change related to your education goals, completion of education, and so on. Can also bring changes to travel plans, and so. But again, make your decisions 2 weeks after this second eclipse take place. Now, and be a little bit careful, don't try not to choose to travel during the eclipses. Now we look at people who have sidereal ascendant Leo or moon in Leo, or if you're following the modern tropical astrology, this is Virgo. For you, the eclipses take place on axis of 8 second houses. Of course, this will directly have impact on your finances via unexpected sources, via partnerships, insurances, inheritances, whatnot. There you may have some development, some movement, but again, try not to be impulsive. Wait a little bit and make your financial decisions like 2 weeks after the eclipse take place. These eclipses can also be portal for knowledge for you in a very interesting sense. If you are afraid, note that you have activation of axis, which is involving some fears, and don't worry, don't be afraid, just remain very spiritual and fearless, because you afterwards have very interesting information and true knowledge. And now we have people who have sidereal ascendant Virgo or moon in Virgo, or if you're following the modern tropical astrology, this is Libra. Now for you, the eclipses are quite much influencing your horoscope because they are taking place on axis of your ascendant descendant, which would say that you may feel this quite emotionally, very much. You have to remain very spiritual. Pray, do your spiritual practices, and try to benefit from this, because this is a change which may result in a change of your views, aims, goals. Try to be author of your change, be one step ahead. You make the choices. You plan your, how to say, the future steps. Be one step ahead, try to intuitively to feel, to draw the best plans for yourself, because these eclipses may lead to change in the direction, change of your goals, especially when we know that the luminaries are also ruling your 12th house, your 11th house. This can be related to your spirituality, to your awakening, to finances also. But in general, this would personally have to do with your own choices. Of course, be more patient, more sensitive, more loving also to your partner, because they may have influence also there. They may have influence also on your career. It can be really quite serious, quite important. Now we look at people who have sidereal ascendant Libra or moon in Libra, or if you're following the modern tropical astrology, this is Scorpio. For you, axis of 12th and 6th houses will be involved. There is a change which may take place because the eclipses are taking place there. Axis of health, hidden enemies, change of the routine. Eventually some disputes may take place. These eclipses may be a portal for change, for opening yourself, your heart towards information related to health. You may really be interested after them in healing. You may opt for different job routine. You may you only may need to be a little bit more responsible for your health and more diplomatic and careful with people, because this is also axis that could bring disputes, some arguments, enemies. So this is where you may need to be a little bit more careful. Now we look at people who have sidereal ascendant Scorpio or moon in Scorpio, or if you're following the modern tropical astrology, this would be Sagittarius. Now for you, the eclipses are taking place on axis of 11th, 5th houses. axis of amazing creative knowledge, gains, children, friendships, plans, all this is influenced. The lunar eclipse is taking place on the 5th house, which is creativity, gains, so you may have changes on this whole axis. Of course, be more diplomatic with friends and be a little bit more attentive with children. And when it comes to financial decisions, try to make them a little bit after the eclipse. Now, we're looking at people who have sidereal ascendant Sagittarius or moon in Sagittarius, or if you're following the modern tropical astrology, this is Capricorn. For you, the eclipses are taking place on axis of 10th, 4th houses, and particularly the second one, the lunar, the first one, the lunar eclipse, this is axis of the lunar, and the solar eclipse is taking place on your 4th house. Home, property, this is where you have activation, career place, parents. With parents, make sure that you're kind, forgiving. Also, you maybe need to be more diplomatic, careful with superiors at work. Try to communicate with them diplomatically, but after the eclipses are over, because you will see how many things may be already changing. This is very important. Be diplomatic. You are now one step ahead because you know which axis in your horoscope will be influenced. If this is axis of your midheaven and lower meridian, even more influential the eclipse will be on your horoscope. So, yes, these are the main things, and yes, this may involve eventually some deals, property, relocations, but of course, you will see where things are heading after the eclipse. So when you make your decisions, try to do it after at least 2 weeks after the second eclipse is taking place. Now we look at people who have sidereal ascendant Capricorn or moon in Capricorn, or if you're following the modern tropical astrology, this would be Aquarius. Now for you, the eclipses are taking place on the axis of your 3rd, 9th houses. And the second eclipse is emphasizing on the 3rd house, communication, brothers and sisters. The whole axis is about knowledge, education. There you may have your changes. It is about, of course, spirituality, traveling abroad. You may do all this, but wait a little bit after the eclipses are over, especially like 2 weeks after them, because then you have better clarity. Be patient, forgiving with brothers and sisters. This eclipse can also mean other means of communication, other media work, other projects, classes, education. All this may be indeed activated. Now we look at people who have sidereal ascendant Aquarius or moon in Aquarius, or if you're following the modern tropical astrology, this will be Pisces. For you, the axis of the eclipses is 2nd, 8th houses, directly related to finances, to the finances of the partner, to family roots. So there you may need to be more careful, diplomatic with family members, more careful and not impulsive when you make financial decisions. So wait until the eclipses are over and then you make your financial decisions. And now we look at people who have sidereal ascendant Pisces or moon in Pisces, or if you're following the modern tropical astrology, this is Aries. Now for you, this particular axis is very important. This is the rising sign. This is axis of great importance. House of life, if you want, is the ascendant. And when an eclipse is happening on such axis, usually it influences the whole horoscope. It is hard to determine where the eclipse actually is not influencing. Be a little bit more patient, forgiving with your partner. There you may experience some change, but now you know, and you are more in control of your horoscope. In general, this may influence your decisions, your future goals. So don't worry if temporarily you feel that the things are a little bit slowed down. This is because the new needs to enter your life. So give it a time and let the eclipse end up. Give 2 weeks of time and see afterwards what the energies will show you. Where are they leading you? In the meantime, don't be afraid, be very brave, because this is a portal for change, and you will become a more spiritual, more awakened, more enlightened person after all these eclipses are over. So just try to benefit from this without being worried, without being afraid. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is about the 12 ascendants. Remember during the eclipse not to expose your food to the energy, to the stress, of these energies. So we don't even expose the water. Try not to eat during the eclipses. Just, live normal life without being afraid, without being worried. As you see, these are divine powers which are meant to introduce changes into our lives, and we just need to to benefit from this, because we chose these interesting times to experience them, to see which are the best lessons for us. So all the best. I hope this was useful.